Can I have everybody's attention, please? Spencer? Turn. I was frustrated by some of the mistakes I saw in the quiz. Now, this doesn't apply to every person in the room. However, the whole point behind the quizzes, the very first quiz is supposed to reveal to you what it is that you're not understanding yet. And then you're supposed to go home and do something about it. And way too many people walked in with, judging by their answers, not much done about it. You know, people like to talk about why is school important, what am I ever going to use this for, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I don't know what, and who of you may or may not use quadratic graphs as you get older. But I do know this, that whatever job you do, whatever role you have in the future as a husband, as a wife, as a father, as a mother, Spencer, that you need to learn to reflect on your efforts, your achievement, and what you need to do to improve those things. And it was pretty obvious to me yesterday that there were some people in here who did not do well on the quiz, went home and never thought about it. And that needs to change. That's what school's teaching you. Because no matter what job you get as you're older, if you're a fashion designer, if you're an auto mechanic, if you're in the military, it's not even to save your life. If you're in something mathematical, if you're a medical doctor, if you do surgery on somebody, or you try to heal somebody and it doesn't work out right, you darn well better be thinking about what went wrong, not thinking to yourself, oh well, I think I'll go golfing. This is not how you do things, because being successful is a way you have of going about your business. And you need to up your game. I'm going to tell you one other thing that's really important. I can tell you right now that I do not expect anybody in this class to fail the Regents exam. I would be stunned if it happened. However, I got to tell you, next year's course is unbelievably hard, and the year after is even harder. Yup. And what we have learned is that just because you pass algebra does not mean you will pass geometry. There is a kid who was in my class 2 years ago, a boy. And I won't tell you what his name was, but all year long, getting him to do his work was a challenge. I had to sit him up on the stage during lunch sometimes because he wouldn't do his homework. He would tell his mother that he was going to extra help, and then he would cut extra help. He would blame his struggles on every person except himself. And he did pass the algebra Regents. And then this summer, in summer school, I was teaching algebra, and then I taught one section of geometry review, which is for those kids who failed the Regents exam in geometry. And guess who was in the class? Same kid. So it eventually caught up with him. So we don't want that to happen to you. So you're going to need to get better at how you go about your business. Now, speaking of how we go about our business, here are the answers to last night's homework. So let's get yours out, take a look, and see how you did compared to what the answers are. Okay? You know, that whole reflection thing is a lifelong process. It's something you do, always looking at yourself saying, where can I improve? You do it when you become a parent. You do it as a student. And you do it as just as a person, trying to step it up and become better. Bless you. Bless you. Everything through this page, I think, should have been easy for you guys. God bless. By the way, I don't know if you noticed it or not, but on the front, I've now put up our calendar for the month of September. From now on, it'll be up there always at the start of the month. We are looking at a test a week from tomorrow.
What? Oh.
Mhm.
What?
What we're
Everything
doing.
we're learning. We feel it, so. Everything like, oh, good. Yeah.
Okay. An allusion to the quiz question. Listen, right now Sarah E. can talk, and whomever she's talking to about the homework can talk. The rest of you can't. Now, this question that is at the top of this homework page here is an allusion to the question, the last question on your quiz. We have to get this question right. If you're not getting this question right, see, you're being lazy, because that's the easiest question on the quiz. It's always h of t equals negative 16t squared, because it's going to be the English system. Then it's plus upward velocity times t plus the starting height. Now, as we read through this problem, it says upward velocity of 14. So it's plus 14t, and then it says the height starts on the ground. So the height is 0. So if you wrote plus 0, that's okay. But you don't need to write anything. Anthony?
The only thing you should realize about the equation is that it's not telling you where the height starts at.
It does. The last number is what the height starts at.
I know, exactly, but it's not mentioned.
Right, and since it's not mentioned, then it actually says it. It says it's kicked off the ground. What you're supposed to be able to do is say, what height is the ground? 0. Okay? Hannah?
I'm not sure if I'm allowed to do this, but I did, for the starting height, I did x.
No.
Did I just do 0?
0. Definitely 0. Okay. Any other questions on this? I'm thinking Spencer and Dessing have to be separated. It's okay. He's a big boy. He can handle his desk. You can turn and focus forward.
He dropped the pencil. I picked it up and used it.
If that was the only time, I wouldn't care, Spencer. Now, next, this graph. A couple of things about this graph. Every once in a while, you'll get a graph that doesn't fit perfectly. Improvise. A couple of ways to improvise: add a couple of boxes, or make each box worth 2. You can do that as well. Notice that I put the table on the side. If you don't put the table on the side, you will lose points. What we're graphing is the table. The table tells us where to plot the points. Okay, we did that yesterday when we used our graphing calculator. Do not just blindly sketch the graph. Use the table. Next, there are some things from this particular graph that are important. For instance, what are the zeros of this graph? Lipstick?
Oh, I don't know. I'm stretching. I'm trying to figure it out.
Intercepts,
What intercepts?
like the y and the x.
The x, just the x. The zeros are the x intercepts. Kaylee?
Oh, like when you're picking tables, it doesn't matter what number you start at. Like,
You want to go so that there's the u, the symmetry. See how it goes in the y column? 0, -7, -12, -15, -16, -15, -12, -7, 0. You want that repetition. If you see that, you're in good shape. Sydney, you need to focus. Okay, what are the zeros here, guys? I think Lipstick wants redemption.
is the x-intercept, well, in the chart it says -12.
The x-intercepts are -6 and 2. The x-intercepts occur whenever y equals 0. That's why we call them the zeros. So I look at this point here, or I look over here and I look for zeros in y. The x is -6, the x is 2. Another way to look at it is it crosses the x-axis at -6 and 2, so the zeros are -6 and 2. All you need to do is look at the graph and see where it crosses the x-axis. Those are the zeros. Spencer?
Is there any way that you could tell that this is quadratic just by looking at the equation?
Yes, as soon as you see a squared.
Okay.
And the squared is the highest exponent. Like if you see a cube then a squared, it would not be quadratic.
Okay.
But as long as the highest one is a 2. Yes. Okay, next up, is this a maximum or a minimum? Spencer?
Maximum?
No.
Oh, man.
Look, if I say to you something has a minimum, doesn't that imply that it has a bottom? Wouldn't this shape have a bottom? If I said it has a maximum, wouldn't that imply it has a top?
Well, yeah, but
Does this graph look like it has a top?
I was looking at the arrows. Never mind.
Okay. All right, it's not bad to get these questions wrong. I've done a poor job in discussing them. That's why I want to make sure I bring it out now. Yes?
What would it look like if it had a maximum and a
It
minimum?
no, it wouldn't. No, it's one or the other.
That'd just be a-
Someone's on some serious medication if there's both the top and the bottom. All right, that's not going to happen. Math on drugs. Okay. Now, we have zeros, we have maximums, we have minimums. Okay, that's what we wanted to get out of that. And that would be it. Now, as far as doing a graph like this at home goes, if you have a graphing calculator at home, piece of cake. You just do it exactly like you've been taught to do it in class. Every time you guys talk when you should, it's a little bit less time learning. Now, what can you do if you don't have a graphing calculator? First off, it doesn't make you bad. And the last thing you do is go home and get snotty to your parents. Because I can remember, as plain as day, when my kid was in 9th grade, I had two sons. One was accelerated in math, one wasn't. My oldest was not. I remember he came to me and he said, I need a graphic calculator by Friday. And I looked at my bank account and I had about $30 in there. The graphic calculator costs $100. Now, not only did he want a graphing calculator, but there's bills to pay for the house. Got to eat. So I couldn't get it for him. There was no way. Now, I also remember later in the year, he said, oh, the class trip is going to Montreal by the end of the week or 2 weeks. I need $400.
Oh my God.
Where's this coming from? And then he looked at me with a perfectly straight face, as if to say, I am a poor parent because I didn't have the money to give him for the trip. And I had to tell him, but I don't have it right now. Now, I was able to get it by then, but I didn't have it at that particular moment. Likewise, if your parents say to you, I can't afford $100 on a calculator, that's okay. You're not bad. Your parents aren't bad. This is just how it is. Now, what are some alternatives? The first one that I would like to see you do is ask for one for Christmas. Okay? If you don't have one yet. And in all honesty, not as a suck up, as a show of good faith, I would ask that you do some work around the house. Kind of earn it a little bit. Show your parents that it means a lot for your education and your education is very important to you. If that doesn't work out, again, every household's on a different situation. The other thing that you can do, particularly, this is a nice intermediate solution. If you have a Kindle or an iPad, you go to the App Store and you get from Desmos, DESMOS, it's a graphing calculator that you can do on your Kindle or your iPad. It's not quite as good as this because it's a little awkward to use, but it graphs in color. It looks very good, and the graphing part, I think, is excellent. Maybe better than the graphing calculator. It's everything else that's not as good. But it's a very good solution that you can have at home that you can use. They also have one for your phone. The problem is it's very hard to see on your phone, but it's better than nothing. Okay? Any questions? All right, so now let's get to today's lesson. All right, I want to go through this as quickly as I can. Actually, you know what? I'm going to get to the lesson part, and I'm going to skip to do it. I apologize, but I don't want to not get this lesson done. Listen, we are going to have a chapter a little later in the year where all we do is graph quadratics and graph exponentials and graph these functions. This is an introductory session. It's not a hardcore learn session. So, in the spirit of it being introductory, let's graph y equals 2 to the x. Go to your calculator, type in y equals, make sure it's all cleared out, and then put 2, and notice in this case the exponent is up in the x. on the right-hand side of your calculator, you will see a key that looks like that. That's the caret symbol. I also call it the up arrow. If you hit 2 and then that symbol and then X. So it's 2, that symbol, and then X. Now what you're going to do is you're going to go to, remember, you hit graph just to see what it looks like. It's a general idea of what it looks like. Okay, see it kind of curves up? Now go to table, because table is what we always want when it comes to doing a graph. And I want to get the center of the graph, and in this case, the center of the graph is right around the y-axis. So let's go -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3. Now, what are the the y values associated with each of the x values? Rivers, what do we get?
Whenever it says go to the graph.
I'll get that in a minute. Alejandro,
For me, it says 0.125.
that's right, good. And then -2 is 0.25, -1 is 0.5, 0 is 1, 1 is 2, 2 is 4, 3 is 8. Make sure everybody has that down there. Okay, now I go plot those points. -3, look, 0.125 is really, really close there, but it's not exactly on the line. Next, -2.25, that's a little bit higher. Come on, good. Then it's 0.5, a little bit higher yet, then it's 1, then it's 2. Would you stop already? Of course I'm talking to the Eno board, which makes me seem really stupid, but anyway. And then 8. And this graph looks
Curves up a lot.
it does crank up a lot, and one day we'll talk what the implications are of that with population and disease and bacteria and so on and so forth. This is the graph of y equals 2 to the x. It's called an exponential function, okay? All exponential functions with numbers greater than or equal to greater than 1 look like this. 1 second, Spencer. Very quickly, I just want you on your calculator, you don't have to put it on your paper. Let's graph y equals 3 to the x. Let's see you do it again. Go to y equals, change the 2 to a 3, up arrow x, and hit that graph. Spencer, quick question?
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, how do they graph this if you don't know what you're scoring by? Or,
You raise it to the power? There are ways to compute it, but you don't know how to do that yet. That's why they never used to teach it in this course.
There's no difference.
But now with the graphing calculator, there is a slight difference. It gets taller, faster.
I don't really see it.
Yeah, I know that you don't, but it actually, the difference is it looks like this.
No, it's not curved though.
I'm pretty sure.
Well, it's just a sharper curve that looks more linear. Okay? The bigger the number, the faster it gets tall. Yes? What? Oh, then it must need it again. What's happening is that your stack part's wrong. Where'd you get this calculator? Yeah.
Hey, Zoe.
All right. That's because you didn't do it right. Y equals, you did two x's, 2 up arrow x. That up arrow puts it in parentheses. Okay? You're over. Yeah. Yes, I'll be here.
I put mine in 18, mine was number 18.
Hasta la vista, vaya con Dios, toodaloo, ta-ta. Hey, who sits here? I have to bust their chops. My job is not to put back their calculator.